He stared at the empty chair across the candlelit table, his fingers drumming lightly against the stem of his wine glass. Adrian Kane, the man who could command boardrooms and sway markets, suddenly looked like a nervous teenager on prom night. He had agreed to this final blind date only because his best friend and assistant, Clara, wouldn't stop pestering him. "You need to live, Adrian. Not just exist," she had said, booking the reservation without his consent. He sighed. It felt ridiculous. He didn't do romance anymore. Not since Emily. Not since the day he buried half his heart with her. But when the restaurant door opened and he saw her walking in, something inside him stopped. She wasn't what he expected. No high heels, no designer gown, just a soft blue dress that swayed as she moved and a shy smile that reached her eyes. She looked real. Her name was Lily Hart, Clara's mysterious friend. She seemed slightly out of place in the golden glow of the upscale restaurant, yet somehow she fit perfectly into the quiet ache of his world. "Mr. Kane?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Adrian," he corrected, standing to pull out her chair. Their hands brushed. Just briefly, but it was enough to send a flicker of warmth through him, one he hadn't felt in years. Dinner was supposed to be polite conversation, a courtesy before they both went their separate ways. But hours passed unnoticed. They laughed, traded stories about childhood dreams and late-night regrets. Lily wasn't impressed by his fortune or fame. She didn't even know the extent of it, and that intrigued him. She spoke about art, about finding beauty in imperfection. When she mentioned she volunteered at a local hospice, Adrian found himself wanting to listen forever. Yet beneath her calm smile, he sensed something fragile, like she was hiding her own ghosts. He wanted to ask, but he didn't. Not yet. When the night ended, he walked her to her car. The city lights shimmered around them, but for once, Adrian didn't feel alone in the glow. This was unexpected, he admitted. She smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. The best things usually are. As she turned to leave, she paused. "By the way, Clara didn't set this up," she said softly. "Emily did." Adrian froze. Emily. His late wife's name. His pulse thundered as he turned, but she was already gone, leaving behind only the faint scent of roses and a note tucked under his glass. "She wanted you to smile again." The low hum of jazz filled the restaurant, soft and sophisticated, wrapping around Adrian Kane like an echo from another life. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across the room, glinting off polished silverware and half-filled wine glasses. Everything around him was perfect, the kind of perfection that money could buy but meaning couldn't. Adrian sat alone at a corner table, his tailored charcoal suit sharp against the plush velvet seat. The waiter had refilled his glass twice already, but he hadn't touched it. His phone buzzed beside the napkin, another message from Clara. "Be nice." No escaping halfway through. He smirked faintly and typed back, "You owe me for this." This was supposed to be his last blind date. The fifth in a row, if he counted the woman who'd spent their entire dinner trying to pitch her skincare brand to him. Clara had sworn this one was different. Someone genuine, someone who doesn't care who you are. He didn't believe her, but she had that relentless optimism that made saying no impossible. He checked his watch again. 7:58. She was late. Good. Maybe she wasn't coming. He could finish his drink, send Clara a smug text, and go home to the silence of his penthouse. He leaned back, watching couples laugh over shared desserts, their fingers brushing across the table. For a brief moment, he envied them, not their love, but their simplicity. The ease of being able to feel without calculation. The waiter approached. "Will the lady be joining you soon, sir?" "Apparently," Adrian replied dryly. "Though I'm starting to doubt her existence." The waiter smiled politely and disappeared, leaving Adrian with his reflection in the glass wall, a man who had everything but looked like he'd lost it all. He sighed, reaching for his glass at last, and then froze. The door at the far end of the room opened, and she walked in. The chatter dimmed, or maybe it was just his heartbeat drowning everything out. She looked around uncertainly, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. When her gaze finally met his, something unexplainable shifted in the air. And for the first time in years, Adrian Kane forgot how to breathe. She hesitated near the entrance, scanning the room until her eyes met his again. There was something almost hesitant in the way she approached, graceful, but not rehearsed, like she wasn't used to places like this. Adrian stood as she neared the table, pushing his chair back instinctively. "Mr. Kane," she asked softly, her voice carrying a natural warmth that somehow cut through the formality of the setting. "Adrian," he corrected, offering a faint smile as he pulled out her chair. "Mr. Kane makes me sound older than I am." She smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips that felt disarmingly real. "All right then, Adrian. I'm Lily Hart." Her handshake was gentle, her palm cool against his. A spark flickered where their hands met, fleeting but undeniable. She settled across from him, glancing briefly at the elegant menu before looking back up, clearly more interested in conversation than cuisine. "I should warn you," she began, eyes glinting with humor, "I'm terrible at small talk. And even worse at pretending I'm someone I'm not." "Good," Adrian said. "I've had enough of both tonight." That earned a quiet laugh from her, the kind of laugh that reached her eyes and made him realize how long it had been since he'd made someone laugh without trying. The waiter appeared, took their orders, and left. "So, what made you say yes to a blind date?" she asked. "I didn't," he said finally. "My assistant tricked me." Her brows lifted, amused. "Then we're both victims. My friend said I was meeting someone who needed a little reminder that life can still surprise him." He smiled. "And do you make a habit of surprising people, Miss Hart?" "Only the ones who look like they've forgotten how to be surprised," she replied softly. For a heartbeat, the air between them stilled. The world outside, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the city lights, all blurred away. There was something in her eyes, something familiar and fragile. He didn't know what it was yet, but for the first time in years, Adrian wanted to find out. The waiter placed their meals before them, her simple pasta, his seared salmon, but neither seemed particularly interested in eating. Conversation flowed too easily, winding between humor and honesty like a dance neither of them realized they knew the steps to. Adrian found himself leaning in, elbows resting on the table, watching her as she spoke. Lily had a way of talking that drew people in, not loud or animated, but full of quiet conviction. "There's something freeing about not knowing how it'll turn out," she said, swirling her wine. "Sometimes the messiest strokes make the most beautiful pictures. I prefer things predictable, controlled," he replied. "Because you're afraid of the mess," she said gently. He looked up, surprised. No one ever spoke to him like that. "And what makes you so sure? You sit like someone who's braced for impact." He laughed softly, but there was no mockery in it. "You're very perceptive, Miss Hart. It's a side effect of spending time with people who don't have time left to waste." Her words hung in the air. He saw the flicker of sadness behind her calm smile, but she quickly changed the subject, to books, to travel, to coffee in a seaside cafe. He didn't press. When dessert arrived, she pushed her plate toward him. "Try it," she said. "Chocolate makes everything better." He met her gaze, steady, teasing, alive, and, for the first time in years, smiled without forcing it. He didn't know who Lily Hart truly was or what shadows lingered behind her calm voice, but one thing was certain: she had managed, in a single evening, to make him feel again. The restaurant had begun to thin out, the soft jazz replaced by the faint clatter of staff clearing tables. Outside, the city hummed under a velvet night, headlights streaking past, rain whispering against the windows. Adrian hadn't noticed the time until Lily glanced at her watch and smiled. "Would you look at that? Midnight," she said lightly. "Turns out I'm better company than you expected." "Much better," he admitted. "You've officially ruined every future blind date I'll never agree to." She laughed, and he caught himself memorizing the sound. He stood, offering his arm. "Let me walk you out." Outside, the air was cool and damp. The scent of rain mixed with roses from a nearby florist, still open under a flickering neon sign. She paused beneath the awning, hugging her coat closer. "You didn't have to walk me," she said. "I wanted to," he replied, surprising even himself. They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then Lily turned to face him, her eyes soft. "This was unexpected," she murmured. "Most good things are," he said. She hesitated, as if weighing whether to say something more. "You know," she said finally, "I almost didn't come tonight." Why? Because I was afraid it would hurt too much. Hurt? She shook her head quickly, smiling as if to chase the word away. Never mind. I'm glad I did. He wanted to ask, but she was already stepping toward the curb, rain misting her hair. She opened her car door, then paused, halfway in, halfway gone. By the way, she said softly, looking back at him, Clara didn't set this up. He blinked. What do you mean? She smiled faintly. Emily did. The name hit him like a blow. His pulse stumbled. Emily, his wife, the woman he'd lost 3 years ago. Wait, he began, but Lily was already in the car, the door closing with a quiet finality. The taillights faded into the rain, leaving Adrian alone under the glow of the street lamp. He looked down. A folded napkin sat where she'd been standing, damp from the drizzle. He opened it slowly. Inside, written in delicate handwriting, were 6 words that made his breath catch. She wanted you to smile again.